All right, welcome to another episode of Black Swan Revelations. My name is Shane. I'm your host today. And today we're going to be continuing on with our series, Something Interesting in Genesis. So today we're on chapter 2. So I'm just going to read a little bit. I'm going to read the chapter. I'm going to share my thoughts as always. And if you get something out of this, if this is interesting to you, feel free to leave a comment. And if you make it to the end of this video, if you survive, please subscribe. All right, let's begin. Chapter 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God ended his works which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he rested from all his work which God created and made. And these are the generations of the heavens, plural, and of the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And every plant of the field before was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Now, I am reading from the book of King James, the King James authorized version. So hopefully you still understand what is going on, because there are some people that say that the King James Bible is too hard to read, too hard to understand. And I will admit there are some words that are very difficult to enunciate. But with time, I think you'll get it. But what's interesting so far in what I have read is, because there was no man yet, remember this is Moses writing this, because there was no man yet, God caused a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. So he placed the man in the Garden of Eden, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. For example, I'm adding the for example, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So these are trees that God created that are pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life, which is in the middle of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I'm going to share my thoughts on that, on those trees. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden. From thence it was parted and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is, which compasseth, that's a tough word, the whole land of Havilah, and there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There's Bedulim and onyx, and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, which is interesting because in Kings, that river was channeled, I believe, through Jerusalem. Could be wrong, but there was something going on with that ancient river. It was mentioned definitely later on. It's either first or second Kings. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. So it goes around Ethiopia as well. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth towards the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. So again, this is Moses describing in detail which directions these rivers are going. which is very fascinating. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it up and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. So you got full access to every tree out of the garden. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. And God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an help meet for him. So let's just talk a little bit about this. So it's interesting that God commanded the man, said you can eat of every tree of the garden, but you can't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What's interesting is he didn't tell man just yet that he could eat from the tree of life, because that was in the middle of the garden. And I'm not saying that that wasn't possible, that was to be understood here. I'm just saying that we don't see it. We don't see it being said. And I'll explain why perhaps this was so. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. So that was a commandment from God to Adam, saying, you cannot eat from this tree. Thou shalt, if you do, in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Now, Solomon did this with a guy, I think the name of, was it Shimei? The guy that was throwing stones at King David when he was fleeing from Jerusalem. There was this one character that was tossing stones and giving curses to King David and some of his mighty men that were escorting David out of Jerusalem. Wanted, I think one of them was, who was it? Was it Joab's brother? I think it was one of Joab's brother, but I'm not sure. I think so. I think it was one of Joab's brothers saying to King David, let me just kill this guy. Like this dog is throwing sticks and stones at us, basically at you, my king. Let me go kill him. And King David said, basically, just leave him alone. I deserve this. Like if he was mad because he basically took over King Saul's, because this guy was a follower of King Saul. And as David was fleeing, obviously throwing stones. But the point I was trying to make is King Solomon said to this dude, he said, dude, if I'm not going to kill you, but you must go to your house. And if you leave your home to go anywhere else, I'm going to kill you. And the guy says, what you have said to me sounds good to me. I won't leave, basically. So then I think it was like a year, 2 years, 3 years later. And this Shimei guy decided, somebody came up to him and said, hey, your, what was it? Your animals or something are in another town. And where were they? In the area of the Philistines, in Gath, somewhere around there. I'm trying to go from memory. I don't feel like flipping over. So then he decided to go and get his animals, or I think it might have been a servant or something like that. And he does it. He goes to Gath, goes to Philistine. And Solomon got wind of it. And he asked the guy, he said, did I not tell you that in the day that you leave your home, you will surely die? And didn't you say it was okay with you, that you understood the terms? Didn't you say that? So it's interesting that King Solomon says, in the day that you do this, you will surely die, meaning it's a death sentence to you. That doesn't mean you're dying instantaneously. You just get vaporized. It means that is your punishment. is, excuse me, when you get caught, you will die. You will surely die. 100% you will die. And this is what God is saying to Adam. Well, it's a long way to get to the point, but it has to be noted that this is what God meant, is in the day that you take of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. So the death sentence to him. And the Lord God said, "Is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet," someone to help him out. And out of the ground, God formed every beast of the field. Okay, this is for a helpmate, a helper. Fowl of the air, brought them to Adam. So God created from the ground, inside the Garden of Eden, he created beasts of the field. God formed them inside the garden. This is not like what was happening before with all the other animals, the whales, the birds, all this kind of stuff. This is literally God forming these animals himself to see what Adam would name them. So he brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to all fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, this is the important thing, there was not found an helpmeet for him until the creation of the woman. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from the man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed." It's interesting that God created all these animals to see not only what Adam could name them, but also to see if they could be a helpmeet. Now, there are some Jewish rabbis, and it's an interesting thought. What I'm going to share is they said that perhaps the serpent was created to be potentially a helpmate for Adam, and Adam refused. Instead, he went with the woman, which is an interesting theory. I'd have to take my shoes and socks off for that one. That's a little bit of a stretch, but I get where they're coming from. Because if that is true, then the serpent would be jealous and all this kind of stuff. But we know from the book of Revelation that the serpent here, the ancient serpent, is none other than the devil, Lucifer. And if you're reading a different Bible, you're not going to say the name, you're not going to see the name Lucifer in the NIV, in the ESV, the New Standard Revised Version, updated version from the 50s and 70s and all that stuff. You're not going to see the name Lucifer. So this is the only time you're going to hear the name Lucifer is from the King James Bible, and it's only said once, and that was in Isaiah 14, I believe. So I'm not going to go into the temptation, but the story gets really interesting really fast in chapter 3. So a couple of interesting takeaways is we have the creation of man, and then we go a little bit deeper to show how that exactly happened. Some people say that there was two accounts. God created a bunch of people, and then later created Adam. I don't see that here. I see that we're just zooming in because remember, Moses knows the story inside and out, and he wrote this. So he's not going to try and make it all confusing. So we have to remember that. And then the interesting thing is God created and formed animals and brought them to Adam. So they didn't have a fear of Adam, which is a bit of a parallel to later in the book of, I think is it in Isaiah, I want to say? Maybe it's Ezekiel. Somewhere where it talks about the lamb. Maybe it's even, it could be Isaiah. Talking about the lion and the lamb laying together and all the animals and a child being able to put his hand into a viper's pit and not be bit. So it's interesting because it could almost appear that the Garden of Eden was very tranquil, if you will, as in the animals weren't eating each other. That doesn't come to Genesis like chapter 6 after the flood. Genesis 7, when there's a new covenant made with Noah saying that all these animals are going to be fearful of you now. They're going to have the fear and dread of you. But right now, these animals are trusting mankind. They're trusting Adam. All right, so that's it for chapter 2. Hopefully you got something out of it. This is a fascinating book. If you don't have this, it's about $30-$40. You can buy yourself a King James Bible authorized version. As you can tell, it's not that hard to understand. Hopefully I didn't lose you in the woods somewhere. It's pretty straightforward. Like a lot of our words that we have today are in this Bible. So it's not a foreign language. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate your time. Again, I hope you got something out of this. If you like this kind of thing, let me know in the comments so that I can know I'm on the right trajectory. If there's another book of the Bible that you would like me to do, even if it's the book of Revelation, I would be willing to do that. But let me know in the comments. What do you think? Otherwise, I am signing off. Have a good night and see you in another video. Bye for now.